It's a BATTLETOME, not a CODEX. 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 It's a WARSCROLL, not a datasheet. It's a WARSCROLL, not a datasheet. It's a WARSCROLL, not a... Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another CODEX review. God damn it. Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another BATTLETOME review video for a faction I know that you guys absolutely love. Yes, we are talking Lumineth Realm-Lords with their 3rd edition BATTLETOME full of WARSCROLLs. I'm saying this for me, not for you, because I made a mistake in the Sons of Bahamut BATTLETOME, and I feel terrible about it. Now, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think this book is absolutely fantastic. It's got plenty of tricks, one of the best looking model ranges to date, and will no longer cause that exhalation of disappointment from your opponent when you pull out this book to play a game of 3rd edition Age of Sigmar with them. After all, gone is lambent light. It's gone. Yes, you'll no longer have to fight in the shade as the sun metal arrows blot out the sky, which is just absolutely fantastic, and it does mean that the rest of the Lumineth Realm-Lords range has room to breathe on the tabletop at long last, and we should now start seeing a lot of variation on the battlefields of the mortal realms. So before we've even gotten into the book, a massive thank you to Games Workshop for sending me this book nice and early so that I can review it for all of you. I'm just really enjoying making these BATTLETOME videos. They take a lot of work, and it is absolutely just my favourite thing to do. It's also given me the impetus to build and paint up a Valinor the Stoneheart King, and if you would like to make sure that you see that video, why not hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you will be notified when that video goes live. Right, I am dying to talk all things Lumineth Realm-Lords, so we're going to jump in to this BATTLETOME, and as always, first up, a history lesson. Magnificent they are, the Lumineth of Hysh. These numinous beings are swift and dexterous, quick of mind and skilled in the arcane arts. Their title of Realm Lords is no idle boast, for over the centuries they have won the allegiance of many strange and wondrous geomantic entities that dwell throughout the realm of light. When these elven war hosts take to the field, the glittering Venari phalanxes, their spearheads and arrow tips blazing with harnessed sunlight, are joined by the arcane warrior monk disciples of the Elementary temples, and the towering war forms inhabited by Hysh's most enlightened and powerful land spirits. Few foes can withstand such a potent concentration of excellence. But the strength of the Lumineth has come at a price. Arrogance, lust for knowledge, and their own obsessive temperament once led them down a dark path, one that almost saw them annihilate themselves in a cataclysmic civil war. Only the wisdom of the Archmage Techless, perhaps the mightiest mage in all the cosmos and one of the twin creators of the Lumineth race, granted the elves a chance to reinvent themselves and make amends for their many sins. That quest for atonement still drives them onwards and has left them determined to end the scourge of chaos, no matter the cost. Much have the Lumineth to be proud of. Through their skill and tenacity was the great necromancer Nagash defeated and the nightmarish soul wars ended. But now the era of the beast has begun, and the elves find themselves matched against primal forces that even they are hard-pressed to counter. The perceived self-righteousness of the Lumineth has won them few friends, and from the shadows many enemies plot to bring about their downfall. If the elves of Hysh are to prosper, they must expand their reach across the realms. Time will tell if the lessons of the past will continue to guide them, or if their own brilliance will once again blind them to an impending disaster. When the world that was destroyed, the souls of its elven inhabitants were devoured by their ancient nemesis Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Chaos. Only a scattered few escaped this fate, and arguably the greatest of these was Tyrion. Once a masterful warrior, now bound to the stuff of purest light, Tyrion awoke in the pristine realm of Hysh. Eagerly did he explore this utopia, yet he felt alone. He had once been a twin, and that bond is not easily broken. It was only after Tyrion journeyed towards the realm's edge that destiny shifted. Though the intense light saw his eyes melt from his skull, for not even a god could walk Hysh's outerlands and remerge unscathed, Tyrion's courage saw him earn the favour of the perimeter inimical's bedazzling soul spirit. When he next awoke, he found himself blinded, yet able to see through the eyes of another, his brother Techless, reborn as an almighty mage god. It was after this that Sigmar journeyed to the realm of Hysh, and when he encountered Tyrion and Techless, the Heldenhammer and the twins embraced each other as allies of old and ancient friends. The twins were overjoyed to learn of the flourishing Azerite civilization that contained some elven cultures. That their people were not all lost to the void was pleasing news. They began to learn, however, that these elves were not the stuff of legend and did not fully recapture the glories of their lost peoples. Joining Sigmar's pantheon, Techless and Tyrion were reunited with Alarielle, Techless's former lover, who now lives on as the goddess of life. They were also reunited with old enemies in Malarion and Marathi. They agreed to set aside their differences, as the rebuilding of the elven race superseded any grudge that might exist between them. It was between these five that a plan to capture Slaanesh itself was hatched and set into motion. They lured Slaanesh to a realm between realms, between Hysh and Ulgu, light and shadow. They battled with Slaanesh, and after a titanic struggle, chains of paradoxical magic were summoned and bound the Dark Prince. Slaanesh raged against captivity as the gods began to painfully extract the devoured elven soul essence from Slaanesh's metaphysical gullet and divided it amongst themselves. After many flawed attempts at soul crafting, including the Scythai, who are forced to flee beneath the ocean when Techless senses a grievous flaw within their souls, the twin gods finally succeeded with the Lumineth. These elves are everything that Tyrion and Techless had longed for, and with a desire to lead and guide this new elven race, Tyrion and Techless began to retreat from Sigmar's pantheon. Lumineth civilization flourishes and their empires and nations prosper, but the whispers of trapped Slaanesh and that famous elven pride combine together to usher in the apocalypse known as the Okari Dara. Thousands of petty rivalries ignite at once as the elves turn immensely powerful magics against one another. Civil wars break out between all the great nations, cities are destroyed, and the spirits of the realm of Hysh itself are deeply scarred. Thousands are slaughtered, and reality is ripped asunder, allowing demons to pour through the rifts in the realmscape of Hysh. The once mighty race of the Lumineth is almost laid low by itself. A fitting end for a prideful race. As the Age of Chaos has begun, the Lumineth find they have alienated the other races of order, and they have largely fled to Azir or surrendered to the Dark Gods rather than align themselves with the Lumineth, who have brought so much ruin on themselves and to the realm of Hysh. Tyrion led the defense of Hysh against the demons and the forces of chaos, but Techless disappeared. He went on a journey to consult and request the partnership of Selenar, the embodiment of the realm's true moon. Together they debated the future and the deeds of the Lumineth, their fate, their purpose, and what should happen going forward. Should the Lumineth be given the chance to atone for their sins, or left to die as punishment for their arrogance? Needless to say, the Lumineth were given the chance of redemption. The entire of Lumineth's society was restructured and their purpose redirected to not master the realms and spirit of Hysh, but to live in service to them, to devote themselves to the betterment and the needs of the realm itself, not the other way around. Slowly but surely, they pulled themselves back from the brink of destruction. They drove out the demons and pushed back the influence of chaos. It was to take decades of hard work, atonement and sacrifice, but the Lumineth once again began to rise. When the Stormcast Eternals are unleashed by Sigmar in a grand counter-attack against chaos, it is the Tempest Lords that first enter Hysh. They battle the followers of Slaanesh alongside the Lumineth, and it is in this that old treaties and accords and fellowships are reaffirmed. Though no longer a pantheon of gods, the Lumineth Realm-Lords and their gods were allied once more with Azir and the God King Sigmar. There's a lot of history and a lot of awesome stuff to dig into in this book for fans of Lumineth Realm-Lords and indeed fans of Order. If you're a fan of the Sigmarites and the Stormcast Eternals, for example, well, Sigmar got up to some nefarious stuff in this book, at least as the Lumineth tell it. So you might want to read on just in case you think he's just oh so perfect. I mean, Sigmar is perfect and I love him. Praise the God King. Not only did I enjoy reading the narrative section of this book, I thoroughly enjoyed reading the rules section of this book too. To clarify, the old Lumineth book was a bit mean. It had real capacity for cruelty on occasion. You see, at times it could be unplayable. Now this one is a joy to read because that's not really a thing now. Some stuff's been pared back, some stuff's just gone, and a lot of the kind of horribleness is sort of toned down a little bit and put into the War Scrolls. I won't give away everything in this video because I really want you guys to jump in and read the book yourselves because I think it's fascinating. It's a really, really, really good book. But it's a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to follow. All the rerolls are gone. So let's have a little look at the hosts of Hysh and what you can do with Lumineth Realm-Lords on the tabletop. So as always, we begin looking at the rules by checking out the allegiance abilities and the battle traits. Now, it's been simplified quite a lot here for the Lumineth. They only have two. Well, three, technically. One of them is the Lumineth Great Nations. You can pick one of the following sub-factions for your army. All Lumineth Realm-Lords units in your army gain the keyword of the sub-faction you picked, and you can use the allegiance abilities for that sub-faction. If a unit already has a different sub-faction keyword on its war scroll, it cannot gain another one. This does not preclude you from including the unit in your army, but you cannot use the allegiance abilities for its sub-faction. We of course have Ymetrica, Syar, Iliatha, Zytrek, Alumnia, and Helon. Next up we have lightning reactions. During the combat phase, after any units with the strike first effect have attacked, when it is your turn to pick a friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords unit to fight, you can pick 2 eligible Lumineth Realm-Lords units instead of 1. Neither unit can have the strike last effect, and each of these units can fight one after the other in the order of your choice. This is immensely powerful for a combat heavy army, wherein, for every 1 attack that your opponent makes with a unit, you get to hit back with 2. And it doesn't have to be against the same unit or the ones that are next to each other. You could pick one on either end of the tabletop, which is just immensely good. Lastly, we have Ether Quartz Reserve. Each Lumineth Realm-Lords unit in your army starts the battle with 1 Ether Quartz Reserve. Once per phase, you can say that 1 unit will use its Ether Quartz Reserve to use 1 of the following Ether Quartz Reserve abilities. However, if you do so, subtract 1 from that unit's bravery characteristic for the rest of the battle. Heightened Reflexes. You can say that a unit will use this ability when it is picked to be the target of an attack, and if you do so, until the end of that phase, add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target that unit until the end of that phase. Heightened Senses. You can say that a unit will use this ability when it is picked to shoot or fight. If you do so, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit until the end of that phase. Lastly, we have Magical Boost. You can say that a unit will use this ability after it has attempted to cast a spell, but before any unbinding rolls are made for that spell. If you do so, you can either add 1 to that casting roll, or re-roll that casting roll. It's nice and simple, it's very effective. I really like the Ether Quartz Reserve ability, just because it adds that little bit of extra such and such to your army. You'll be using 1 Ether Quartz per phase, if you want to. You of course don't have to, but it is a nice way of giving that little bit of an extra push on the War Scrolls. For example, if you've got a unit you really need to survive in combat on an objective, then you can just use that Heightened Reflexes. If you think they're going to die, it doesn't matter about the -1 bravery anyway, and there is a way to get rid of that effect by having the Cenari Cathalar in your army. Worthy of note here as well is that the benefits for being Venari units, or Alarith, or Huracan, or any of that kind of thing, they are now on the War Scroll. You don't have these kind of generic battle traits that make it all confusing, so it's a really nice quality of life change for the army. So moving on to enhancements. This is a surprisingly lackluster section of the book, if I'm being honest. You have choices for all 4 of the temples, so the Venari, Cenari, Huracan and Alarith, and that goes double for artifacts of power as well. This has the added bonus of creating more variation in Lumineth armies, as you won't see particularly many auto-take enhancements and artifacts. I think my favourites are Grand Strategist for the Venari, Spellmaster for the Cenari, Grand Wind Rider for the Wind Mage, and Unyielding Toughness for the Stone Mage. Similarly, as mentioned, you have 4 sections in the Artifacts of Power, and again, my favourites here are probably Waystone for the Venari, Phoenix Stone for the Cenari, Windblast Fan for the Wind Mage, and Molten Talisman for the Stone Mage. The spell laws for the Lumineth are pretty awesome here, and again have seen a bit of curtailing. You have 6 on the Law of Hysh that the Cenari, Venari and Techless all have access to, and 3 each for the Wind Mage and Stone Mage, which makes it a lot more manageable. Highlights are of course Total Eclipse to force your opponent to spend 2 command points instead of 1 until your next hero phase, Overwhelming Heat to pick an enemy that halves its move characteristic and can take mortal wounds on a dice roll, and Speed of Hysh to double the move characteristic of a friendly unit. In the Law of Winds, I really like Transporting Vortex for flinging a friendly Lumineth unit somewhere on the board, and in the Law of the High Peaks, Crippling Vertigo is my favourite because of its name, and the ability to stop any movement from any enemy unit on a 2d6 Beat the Bravery roll. There's a lot of fun to be had here in the spells, as you would expect from the Lumineth Realm-Lords, and to clarify, Lambent Light is gone, so no re-rolling Sentinels. Huzzah! Next up, we have the Great Nations, of course. All of the nations' specific artifacts and stuff are gone, as is tradition in 3rd edition, and each just grants an additional battle trait. Ymetrica makes your Alarith units even tougher. Syar grants extra Ether Quartz. Iliatha can use more Ether Quartz per turn. Zytrek adds 1 to casting, dispelling and unbinding rolls for Zytrek wizards. Alumnia throws up the shield wall and counts as 2 models for contesting objectives if the bases are touching in Venari units. Helon adds 1 to the attacks characteristic of missile weapons used by friendly Helon units while they are within 6 inches of any enemy units. Helon is really good for those who want to play Lumineth with existing Sentinel heavy armies. Alumnia is nice for Venari fans and holding objectives, and Ymetrica is great for Alarith heavy armies. All in all, pretty cool. Now as for War Scrolls, there are an absolute ton of them in here, and we simply do not have time to go through them all. But what I thought I'd do is of course show off Techless, because he's, well, Techless. But then I would actually show off a list idea I have first and talk you through how it works on the tabletop. So, Techless. Techless has 16 wounds, a 10-inch move, a 4+ save and a bravery of 10. He is a wizard of course, but we'll get to that very shortly, because he has a missile weapon in the Lunar Staff with an 18-inch range, 1 attack, 2+ to hit, 2+ to wound, -3, damage d6. That's a pretty funky missile weapon. His melee weapons are the Sword of Techless and the Moonbright Talons. They each have a 1-inch range, and the sword has 2 attacks, 4+ to hit, 2+ to wound, -3 rend, damage d3, whereas the Moonbright Talons have a degrading amount of attacks from 6 to 3 based on how many wounds Techless has taken. It hits on a 3, it wounds on a 3, it's -2, and it's a flat damage 2. So he's not a slouch in combat, but he's not setting the world on fire. On that damage table, we have something very important, because now Techless, rather than having his move go down, his ability to cast spells actually degrades. When he's unwounded, he can cast 1, 2, or up to 4 spells, and when he has suffered 10 to 12 wounds, he goes down to cast 2 or up to 4 spells. And when he's on his 13+ wounds suffered, he can only cast up to 4 spells. I say only. That's a lot of spells. Now that'll make more sense in just a moment. As you can see, the Aura of Selenar also degrades from 16 inches down to 6 inches as he suffers wounds. As a wizard, the number of spells this unit can cast is determined using the Archmage ability. Techless can attempt to unbind any number of spells in the hero phase. One thing to point out here is I'm not sure if he should know all of the spells in all of the laws. Maybe he should. I'd expect an FAQ to tell us whether or not he is supposed to know the entirety of the spell lore. It feels like he probably should, from a narrative point of view. It would just make sense, right? Techless can also fly, because of Selenar, the spirit of Hysh, and, as an archmage, at the start of your hero phase you must say how many spells this unit will cast. The number of spells it can cast are shown on the damage table above. If you say one spell, when it attempts to cast that spell, it is automatically cast with a casting roll of 12 that cannot be modified, and it cannot be unbound. If you say two spells, when it attempts to cast those spells, each is automatically cast with a casting roll of 12 that cannot be modified, and these spells can be unbound. If you say up to 4 spells, when it attempts to cast those spells, each is automatically cast with a casting roll of 10 that cannot be modified. These spells can be unbound. With the Aura of Selenar, add 1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords units wholly within range of this unit's Aura of Selenar ability. The range of the Aura of Selenar ability for this unit is shown on the damage table above. It's worth noting here that he does not give that aura to himself because those spell rolls cannot be modified. Discs of the Elementary. In your hero phase, in addition to casting spells, this unit can automatically dispel 1 endless spell. In the enemy hero phase, this unit can automatically unbind 1 enemy spell. He can of course attempt to unbind any number of spells, there's no limit, but he can automatically unbind 1 or automatically dispel an endless spell, which is just very, very good. With the Seeing Stone of Selenar, each time a friendly unit within range of this unit's Aura of Selenar ability is affected by the abilities of an endless spell or a spell cast by an enemy wizard, you can roll a dice, and on a 4+, ignore the effect of that spell or the effect of that endless spell's abilities on that unit. Then pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of that unit, and that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Ouch. Techless has 2 spells on his profile. He has Protection of Techless, which is a casting value of 10 and a range of 18 inches. If successfully cast, friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords units wholly within range of the caster have a ward of 5+ until your next hero phase. This spell cannot be cast in the same phase as Protection of Hysh. Storm of Searing White Light. Storm of Searing White Light is a spell that has a casting value of 10 and a range of 18 inches. If successfully cast, roll a dice for each enemy unit within range and visible to the caster. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 4, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. And on a 5+, that unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. Which is a lot of mortal wounds. Techless is pretty cool and now comes in at 700 points, which is cheaper than before, but he is slightly weaker than he was with his spellcasting degrading, unlike previous iterations of the WARSCROLL. So with Techless out of the way, it's now time to discuss my list idea before we jump into the rest of the book. So, my list is here as follows. We have a Ymetrica army. It has Avalanor, the Stoneheart King, because, I mean, he's awesome. Followed by 3 units of Alarith Stoneguard. We have an Alarith Stone Mage in there. We have Lyrior Yuthrala, Venari Wardens, a unit of Venari Sentinels, a Star Shard Ballista, 2 units of Huracan Wind Chargers, a Cenari Enlightener, and the Shrine Lumina. So why this combination of units? Techless is an auto-include if you want to cast a bunch of spells. That much is obvious from his WARSCROLL. However, at 700 points, you'll be fielding a bunch of stuff to protect him and kind of be forced to castle up a bit, which isn't really all that beneficial in 3rd edition. With some of the changes to WARSCROLLs and the way the temples work now, you don't have to be passive really anymore. So let's look at why. Firstly, Avalanor the Stoneheart King is absolutely worth it, and at 420 points he is an investment. You won't see him and Techless in the same army really, as it's too much focused on 2 units. You want to accompany Avalanor with some Alarith Stoneguard, as his command ability helps them hit better, and he can do it 3 times in the same command phase rather than the D3 on the Alarith Spirit of the Mountain. If you want to take this much Alarith, then Ymetrica is your best bet for the Great Nation selection, as they become battle line in your army. So a Valinor and 3 Alarith Stone Guard feels nice to me. A Stone Mage being with them lets a Valinor always operate at his top profile, and with those damage 5 hammers, that's pretty neat. This section of the list moves into the middle, holds the objectives, and is tough to move with their ability in a Ymetrica army to avoid -1 and -2 rend. In the backfield we have the Venari operating as a gun battery, with the Starshard Ballista and the Venari Sentinels buffing up each other's range by being near each other. They're able to soften up enemy units as they try to take the centre from the Alarith, or put the hurt on monsters before a Valinor finishes them off. The Wardens act as a screen and a shield wall to stop anything that breaks through. Liriol Ythrala can issue commands anywhere on the battlefield with the voice of Tyrion, and is a neat hero to have around to finish off units or add a little combat weight here or there. With the Shining Company rule as well, the Venari are protected from anyone trying to do the same thing back to them by being -1 to hit if their bases are touching each other. Next up we have the 2 units of Huracan Wind Chargers. Dawn Riders are a fine choice here too, however the Huracan are a bit more versatile. They sit on either flank to act as roadblocks for the opponent trying to get around your Alarith block in the middle. With their bows they can lend weight of fire to the middle of the table, and they can reach out and hurt opponents making a play down the flank, and they are very fast. Able to move around the terrain as if they can fly, and, in a pinch, they can do some damage in combat. Lastly, we have the Cenari Enlightener and the Shrine Luminor. The Enlightener, being a 2-cast wizard, is very handy, and with its ability to effectively resolve those spell effects that it successfully cast a second time on another unit, that's big. It almost becomes a 4-cast wizard. Then, popping the Enlightener in the Shrine Luminor, which is free, and lets a friendly wizard reroll 1 casting, unbinding or dispelling roll within 24 inches if a hero is embarked. In addition, once per battle round, the Guardian embarked can issue a command without a command point being spent. So the Enlightener is going in there. All in all, the list is the sum of its parts and is active across the board and very interactive with your opponent's army. It's also very thematic to my mind. I mean, it'll just look really cool. One of the main things I really love about this book is how all of the sections and all of the units can start to layer up the benefits and buffs together, and that is the intention behind this list, taking an Alarith temple and a Venari temple with a little bit of Huracan here and there. You of course could lean in any way you want to, but this is how I kind of envision the army playing, and I think it's really, really cool. There is definite play though in lots of Venari units, lots more Alarith units, and of course a heavy focus on Huracan if you are Helon for having the battle line Huracan Wind Chargers. So, there we have it. Lumineth Realm-Lords Battletome in the books. If I say it enough times, I shan't get it wrong again. Yes, we are all done with the Lumineth Realm-Lords. I really enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed this faction. I adore them. I think they've got such a really strong aesthetic on the battlefield, and I'm really excited to see what people do with this tome now this is in their hands, because just seeing a bunch of Sentinels and Techless for a while, not so great, and the entirety of those armies of nothing but Huracan, Spirit of the Wind, and Severith of the 7th Wind, or whatever he's called. It's not particularly engaging or fun for your opponent, mostly. Might be fun for you, but for your opponent, less so. That's not to say that there's not some really, really, really strong, powerful stuff in here. Sun metal weapons are still a thing, and power of Hysh still being everywhere to make those mortal wounds go off on a 5+ is very, very good. It's just you're not going to be fishing for them anymore, so it's just cool. It's really, really nice. The book is a lot simpler, as I've said a number of times before, and it's a lot easier to follow. It's keyworded properly. It's just a glow up, I think, for the faction. Maybe the power level has come down, but the playability has skyrocketed right up. And I really love the interactivity between all of the units, which is just really, 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 really nice. So I could wax lyrical for a while about the Lumineth Realm-Lords, but it is time to end. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time for another Battletome review. I hope you're enjoying these, because I'm enjoying making them. I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/Warhipster, or head to ko-fi.com/Warhipster. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these amazing, wonderful people have done. And if you really like this video or you just want to shoot me some support, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.